Welcome to Lesson 13. In this lesson, we're going to use the sweep command as we did in Lesson 12, but we're going to do something a little bit different with it. Here are the two examples of what we'll be doing in this lesson, where we take an existing solid block and make a modification to it, cutting in this case this decorative edge as you might cut with a router bit. And in this one, we will cut this slot through this part. Let's go back quickly, look at the parts that we worked on in Lesson 12. We created a hose with a circular sketch, the inside and outside diameter of that hose, and then we drew the path for that to follow, and from that created this solid that is the hose. And similarly, in the second part of that lesson, we created a rectangular sketch and swept that along a squared off path in the first example, and then a rounded path in the second example, creating the solid geometry as we went. Let's look at now how we can, a couple of different ways, use the sweep command to modify an existing solid. Let's not worry about what the exact dimensions are of this. I'm just going to start a new part. I'm going to start a new part. Standard IPT, create a sketch. Let's put a rectangle up there. Let's make it 4 inches wide, 3 inches tall. Finish that sketch, extrude that. Let's make it 0.750 thick. Let's put a fillet on each corner. Let's make this 3/4 inch as well, 0.75. Now we have a nice rounded edge for this. If I wanted a simple fillet, a simple rounded edge, then there you go. That's all you have to do. Do a fillet, put in a diameter, or put in a radius, say okay, we've got a fillet. But that is not what we want on this one. We want something a little more complex. And we need to create a sketch of that. Let's use the XZ plane since that passes through the part. Create a new sketch on that plane. Press F7 to slice the geometry in half. Let's come in here to one corner of the part. And let's just sketch in here this profile. Zoom in a little. There we go. That's the basics of it. A couple more lines to get everything rounded off. Let's see, I'm going to need to project some geometry, get these edges. Let's turn that into construction geometry and turn that one into construction geometry. Now I can use a coincident constraint to stick that to the corner. Let's give this a width of 0.375, give that 0.375, make each little leg here, I don't know, 80 thousandths, 0.080. Now all that we lack is a dimension for this radius. Make it 0.1875, that's 3/16. Now we have a fully constrained closed profile, so we can finish this sketch. And now we're ready to create the sweep. As we did in our first couple of lessons, we had a sketch that was the path for this. But in this case, we don't have to have a path sketched if I have a path that is part of my solid model. It wants me to select a curve or edge. It has automatically selected our first profile since it was a single closed profile. Now to select my curve or edge, just bring the mouse in to the top edge of this part. It will highlight that, tell it that I want to cut material away, and say okay. There you have it. We can create any shape that we want in this 2D sketch, and then use sweep to follow the edge of the part all the way around. Now let's do this a little bit different way. If you remember from the second part of Lesson 12, we had one that was rounded, and we had one with squared off corners. Let's go back into this part. I'm going to delete my last two features. I'm going to come back in quickly and resketch. Let's see, I need to find the right plane. XZ plane works. Start a sketch there, F7. We will resketch the original geometry that we had to start with. Point to point. Drag out that arc. Little vertical line. Horizontal to our side. Back. Oops, I missed that one. Let's add a coincident constraint. Back to the top. Throw our dimensions back on here. 375 this way. 375 this way. 1875 and whatever these were. 0.080. Okay, we got our sketch back the way it was. And we're going to sweep again. It selects that closed profile again. Now as I start selecting curves or edges, notice it just does one at a time. When I had a fillet on the corners and it had a continuous path to follow, it automatically followed that path all the way around the top of this block. But this time I come to a sharp corner and it's making me choose. Do I want to go down or do I want to go across? Click there to go across. Click there to come back. And now I have completed that profile. So rounded corners or sharp corners, you can follow the edges of the part and sweep that profile that you created. Let's save that one. Lesson 13A. And we will start a new one. Let's create a new part for lesson 13, part B. New sketch. Let's make another rectangle. Let's make this one 4 inches long, 3 inches high. Zoom out, finish that sketch. Extrude this one 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to come down to this face of the part and create a new sketch there. Let's draw a shape here. Let's project this top edge of the part as construction geometry. Turn off construction geometry, start sketching some lines. And in this part we had something like this. Just making it up as we go. Alright, let's give it some dimensions. 0.25, let's make it 750 wide. I'm going to make that center point be 750 divided by 2. Dimension this, 0.25. Remember, the numbers don't matter. You can make it up whichever way you want to do it. Give that a radius, 0.250. Everything's black, everything's constrained. I do need to come back, close that profile, cap it off there, finish 2D sketch. So now I have the profile that I want to cut, but I don't have the path yet. I'm not going to use the edges of the block. I'm going to create a new sketch on top of the part. Let's project geometry again. Let's use the center point of that arc. That gives us a starting point to begin sketching on the top of this part. Come over here and create a line. Find that center point. Click that. Drag out to the left. Let's create a partial arc. We don't want to go all the way to 90 degrees. I want this to come out at an angle. So I move there till I get that tangent constraint symbol pop up. That gives me a nice smooth curve. Let's give this one another arc. See that dashed line that appears? That lets me know I'm directly under that center point, so that when I create this line tangent, it's going to go all the way to the left, perfectly horizontal. I need to project some more geometry, keep it construction geometry, so I can pin this point with a coincident constraint to that end line. Now I just need to come in and add some dimensions. I'm going to put a driven dimension here. This is just a dimension in parentheses that shows me what that distance is to start with. I'm going to make this dimension be the same. Make it the same dimension, same distance off the bottom edge that it is off the top edge. We need to dimension to the center of the arcs. It could be the length of those lines. That's the same thing. Those arcs need dimensions. We'll make them Let's make it a little bigger. Let's make both of these 1 inch. 1 inch. That's going to leave a little bit of a straight line in the middle. Gives us a nice continuous path to follow. And we say OK. Now we are in a condition similar to what we had in lesson 12, where we have a closed profile and we have a path for it to follow. We finish this sketch, and when we sweep, it selects that profile for us. All we have to do is click the path. It is cutting through the part. Say OK, and there we have it. Let's save that one. Lesson 13B. And go back and take a look at what we have learned from sweep. Lesson 12A. Draw the circular profile, sweep it along a long curving path. In lesson 12B, we drew some rectangles, one along a right angle path, one along a curved path. See two different results there. Then lesson 13, let's look at this version, where we created fillets on the edge, and that router bit type cut followed all the way along that curved edge of that part. The one that we just created, the second attempt at it, we made squared off corners. Or we can have, there was our example, there's the one we just did. You can create a profile and cut it along the path that you create. That's the basics of the simplest use of the sweep command. There's some other options and other things to look at in here at some point. We'll take a deep dive into all those. But for now, that's enough to get you started with sweep. So go practice that, draw some different shapes, work with the numbers, get a feel for it, and then come back for lesson 14.